Welcome to Hard Script.
I remember the moment everything inside me shut off. Not went numb, not froze. Shut off, like someone pulled the main breaker to my heart and walked away. It was a Thursday night. She was sitting across from me at the kitchen island, legs crossed, glass of wine in hand, scrolling through her phone like I wasn't even there. I'd asked her a simple question. Are we okay? Just that. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just a man trying to find a pulse in something that used to feel alive. She didn't even look up. She just smirked, shrugged, and said it like a punchline she'd rehearsed a dozen times. Who needs intimacy anyway? And then she went right back to scrolling, like I hadn't just been gutted in the middle of our own kitchen. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask what she meant. Because suddenly, I didn't need to. That one sentence carried the weight of 1,000 little moments I'd ignored. The slow drift. The rolled eyes. The phantom touch that never landed. The way she used to kiss me with both hands, and now barely touched me at all. It all clicked. She wasn't being sarcastic. She meant it. Intimacy, real intimacy, had become a bargaining chip. Something she could weaponize. Deny. Hold back. And suddenly, I saw our entire relationship for what it had become, one-sided. Transactional. Cold. And I was just the fool who kept paying into a connection that no longer existed. I smiled, but not out of bitterness. It was a calm smile. Cold. Surgical. Because in that moment, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that plans. She didn't know it, but she'd just given me permission to vanish, piece by piece. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while her laughter echoed down the hall from TikTok videos she was watching alone. At 3 a.m., I got up, opened my laptop, and started making changes. Passwords, bank accounts, cloud drives, quiet moves, untraceable shifts. By sunrise, she was still asleep. I left early, earlier than usual. No goodbye, no coffee, no note. The silence wasn't punishment. It was a prelude. That day at work, I started drafting a new life, not in theory, but in spreadsheets, legal forms, and digital trails she'd never find. She thought I'd stay no matter what. Thought my loyalty was blindness. She was wrong. That night, when I walked in, she didn't even glance up from her show. Just asked if I could order food. I did. I handed her the receipt. And I made sure she saw the name on the account had changed. She blinked, but said nothing. Because she didn't know yet. But she would. Soon, she'd know exactly what it feels like when the man who gave everything gives up and doesn't come back. She didn't notice at first. Not when I stopped asking how her day was. Not when I stopped making her coffee in the morning. Not even when I moved my work laptop from the bedroom to the guest room. To her, it was just another phase I was going through. A mood. One of those male funks she liked to complain about to her friends when she thought I wasn't listening. But it wasn't a phase. It was a beginning. The first quiet cut. That weekend, she suggested we go out. Something spontaneous, her words, not mine. I nodded, told her I had errands to run. She didn't argue, just gave that distracted shrug I'd seen 100 times. She was still playing the game she thought she was winning. That night, I watched her from across the room while she posted something for her growth account. A filtered selfie, some recycled quote about loving yourself first. She didn't notice the way I looked at her. Not with longing, not with pain, but with distance. She had no idea how far I'd already gone. It was Monday morning when the second cut landed. I moved some money out of our joint account. Nothing major. Just a small reallocation. Enough that she wouldn't catch it right away, but enough that I'd feel it. The shift. The ownership. I went to work like nothing happened. She sent me a text around noon. You seemed off this morning. Everything okay? I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Yeah, just focused. 2 words. Neutral. Non-threatening. But final. The kind of response that used to drive her crazy. Not because it was cold, but because she couldn't argue with it. She couldn't dissect it. Couldn't flip it back on me. It was just stillness. And stillness, to someone like her, is terrifying. When I got home that night, she'd lit candles in the dining room. Made pasta from scratch. Her version of affection. Not because she missed me, but because something in her instincts told her control was slipping. I ate in silence. Didn't compliment the food. Didn't ask about her day. Just cleaned my plate, rinsed it in the sink, and walked to the living room. She followed, sat beside me on the couch, just close enough for her perfume to reach me. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. I nodded, just thinking. She waited, expected more. I gave her nothing. She leaned her head toward my shoulder. I stood up to get a glass of water. When I came back, she was still sitting there, staring at the TV, but not watching it. The silence between us had shape now. Density. It wasn't tension. It was absence. And the scariest part? I was comfortable in it. Because I had finally stopped trying to be seen by someone who chose to look away. It started with little things. I stopped checking in during the day. No more, "How's your afternoon?" texts. No more inside jokes. No more surprise coffee deliveries to her office when meetings ran late. At first, she probably chalked it up to stress. A busy week. A distracted husband. But the thing is, distraction fades. This didn't. Because I wasn't distracted. I was done. And she hadn't figured that out yet. By Wednesday, she tried to swing the pendulum back. She walked into the kitchen in one of those silk robes I hadn't seen in over a year. No special occasion. Just her idea of intimacy on demand. The kind you serve up like a dish you only make when you're worried someone's losing their appetite. I didn't react. I poured my coffee, picked up my keys, and said I'd be working late. I wasn't. I just sat in my car for an hour after work. No music. No phone. Just silence. The kind that doesn't demand anything from you. The kind you forget exists when you've spent years performing someone else's version of marriage. She called while I sat there. I let it ring. Then I drove to the gym, bought a new membership, spent an hour sweating out the weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. Not on my body, on my spirit. When I walked through the door later that night, her eyes followed me like she was trying to figure out what she missed. "You look different," she said carefully. "Just tired," I replied, placing my gym bag by the door. But I wasn't tired. I was focused, laser sharp. That weekend, she invited friends over. People we hadn't seen in months. She laughed louder than usual, touched my arm when she spoke, called me babe, like it still meant something. I played the role, smiled when needed, poured wine, chatted about sports. But I watched her more than I spoke. I watched the way she made sure they saw a version of us that hadn't existed in years. How she leaned on me like we were still a team. Like she hadn't been the one pulling away, inch by inch, until I stopped reaching back. After they left, she turned to me with that carefully measured tone. "Tonight felt good," she said. "Like old times." I nodded. "Glad you think so." Then I walked upstairs. Alone. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't trying to rekindle anything. I was collecting data, watching patterns, measuring how much effort she was willing to put in when eyes were on us, and how quickly it vanished when the lights went out. She thought she was adjusting the temperature. She didn't know the fire had already gone out. There's a moment when someone realizes they've lost control. It doesn't come with fireworks. No grand collapse. Just silence. The kind that presses in from all sides and dares you to pretend it's not there. It started with her routine breaking. She began hovering near the kitchen when I came in from work, asking what I wanted for dinner, even though we both knew she hadn't cooked in weeks. Lurking in doorways like she wanted to ask something, but couldn't find the right angle. She was searching for footing, trying to make the shift seem mutual, but it wasn't. I'd already made my decision. Quietly, surgically. She was still trying to negotiate. That Sunday morning, she came downstairs wearing one of my old t-shirts. The one she used to steal because she liked how it smelled. It was a move, an attempt at nostalgia. A reminder of us. I poured my coffee, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door without a word. Not out of spite. Out of precision. At the gym, I pushed harder than usual. Not to punish myself, but to remember myself. Who I was before I became a man measured by someone else's approval. When I got home, she was curled on the couch, a half-finished glass of wine on the table. She didn't look up. She was adjusting now. Recalculating. I could see it in the way her body stilled when I walked past her. She was no longer trying to control me. She was trying to read me. And failing. That night, I ordered dinner. One portion. Ate alone on the patio. Left the door open behind me. Not as an invitation, but a boundary. She didn't join me. She watched. The next morning, she texted me while I was in a meeting. "I miss us." 2 hours later, "Can we talk?" I didn't respond. Because there was nothing to talk about. She thought this was still a conversation. She didn't realize it was already a conclusion. By Wednesday, she was unraveling, pacing the living room while I sat upstairs, asking questions with no weight behind them, like she wanted to provoke something, a reaction, a fight, but I gave her none of it. And that's when the silence turned into a mirror. She saw herself in it, not who she thought she was, but who she'd become. And for the first time, it scared her. Because for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't reach. I didn't need her. The thing about silence is that, after a while, it stops being an absence. It becomes presence. It fills the room, expands into every space they used to occupy. And for someone like her, someone used to being the gravity everything else orbited around, it's unbearable. She started waking up earlier, not to do anything productive, just to be in the same room. She sat across from me at the breakfast table for the first time in weeks, eyes watching me over the rim of her coffee mug like she expected me to say something. I didn't. She cleared her throat, mentioned a vacation spot we once talked about. I nodded, didn't look up from my phone. That was the first time she flinched. It was subtle, a quick drop in her expression, a crack in the mask. She thought love was a switch she could flip. She didn't understand that once the echoes go quiet, they don't come back. The next few days were a slow dance of desperation. Little gestures that once meant something now felt rehearsed. She left her phone face up on the counter, scrolled through photos of us with the volume turned up, hoping I'd hear the laughter from a time she'd already abandoned. But memories don't mend what's been hollowed out. And I didn't need reminders of what she used to be. I needed proof of who she was now. And every move she made confirmed it. She offered to make dinner Friday night. I told her I had plans. I didn't. I just drove around the city, windows down, letting the wind clear out whatever residue of her still clung to me. When I got home, she was sitting in the dark. Not crying. Not angry. Just small. She asked if we could talk. I said maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow came. We didn't talk. That weekend, she posted a filtered selfie with a caption about growth and rediscovery. No ring on her finger. I didn't say a word. Not because I was hurt. Because it was confirmation. She was playing both sides, still trying to control the narrative while scrambling to find footing. But there was no story left to twist. Because I had stopped being a character in her script. She just hadn't realized it yet. I spent that Sunday cleaning out the garage. Packed a few boxes. Labeled them neatly. Not because I was leaving that day, but because I was done pretending I wouldn't. She walked in, saw the boxes, and asked what I was doing. I told her, making space. That was the moment the panic started to bloom in her eyes. Because for the first time, she understood. I wasn't making threats. I was making moves. She asked again that night what the boxes were for, where they were going, if I was leaving. I told her not yet. But that wasn't the answer she wanted. She didn't want truth. She wanted reassurance. And I had none left to give. Because the point of no return doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with yelling or slammed doors. It comes with stillness. And by then, I had become still in a way that scared her. She started making noise. Small things, at first. Playing music loud in the mornings. Cooking breakfast she never used to eat. Wearing perfume she hadn't touched in years. Asking me to help with things she once insisted she could handle herself. But I didn't bite. She thought I was waiting to be invited back in. She didn't realize I had already let myself out. That week, she started texting more. Not about anything meaningful. Just breadcrumbs. We should take a trip soon. Remember that weekend in the cabin? Thinking of you today. All carefully curated. All meant to plant doubt. She wanted to make me question my distance. To second-guess the decision she forced me into. But it didn't work. Because you can't manipulate someone who's no longer emotionally invested. And I wasn't. She noticed it when I stopped checking my phone. When I left texts on read. When I started smiling for no reason. And she wasn't the reason anymore. That Friday, I came home later than usual. She was waiting in the kitchen. Hair done. Makeup subtle but intentional. A bottle of wine on the counter and a playlist softly playing in the background. I walked in, set down my bag, and started making a protein shake. She watched like she didn't recognize me. Because she didn't. Not anymore. I had become something she never expected. Unreachable. Not because I disappeared. Because I stopped orbiting her. That night, as I sat in the living room reading, she stood in the doorway for a long time, saying nothing. Just watching. She wanted a scene. She wanted a crack. But all she got was silence. And for someone used to power, Silence is chaos. The next day, I booked a week off work. Didn't tell her where I was going. Didn't leave a note. Just packed a small bag, grabbed the keys, and walked out the door. Not to escape, but to breathe. Because nothing is louder than the sound of a woman realizing she's no longer being followed. And everything she thought she had control over is gone. I was gone for 5 days. No contact. No explanation. Just gone. I stayed at a small cabin an hour outside the city. No TV. No reception. Just trees, silence, and the steady unraveling of every false narrative I'd once believed about our marriage. I didn't check my phone once. Not because I didn't expect messages. Because I knew exactly what they'd say. I miss you. Let's talk. Where are you? Maybe even a few that sounded like apologies. But apologies don't matter when they're just attempts to stop the bleeding. And by the time I came back, the wound wasn't mine anymore. It was hers. The house felt different. Not quieter, emptier. A tension that had once clung to the walls was now replaced with something worse. Uncertainty. She didn't greet me at the door. She didn't rush in with questions or accusations. She just stood there at the top of the stairs, watching me come back like she wasn't sure if she should speak. She didn't. Good. Because whatever she had to say, it was too late. Her world had kept spinning without me in it, and that terrified her. I unpacked slowly. One bag. A couple shirts. A pair of hiking boots still caked in mud. She saw them and blinked, like she didn't know what to do with the version of me that left and returned as someone else. Over the next few days, she tried harder than I'd ever seen. Cleaned the house. Made dinner. Laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny. But the collapse had already begun, and it was all behind her eyes. Her messages went from light to panicked. From let's reconnect to what are we even doing? I answered only once. Exactly. And that broke her more than shouting ever could. Because the worst pain isn't caused by anger. It's caused by being ignored. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was showing her, calmly, methodically, what distance really feels like when the other person isn't waiting to be pulled back. And when the world around her started noticing, that's when the collapse turned public. Her sister called me, asked if everything was okay. I said I was great, and I meant it. Her best friend messaged me, hinting at concerns, saying she looked off. She was. Because the version of her that once thrived in control was now shrinking in silence. She had spent years believing I was dependent, that I needed her to feel whole. But now the mirror was facing the other way. And what she saw was a man she couldn't reach, because I was no longer standing still. The change wasn't loud. It was in the rhythm of my mornings. In the way I didn't pause anymore before grabbing one mug instead of two. In the way I stopped listening for her footsteps, her voice, her presence. I had unlearned the habits of a man who once made room for someone who never truly showed up. She started noticing the details. I stopped folding her laundry. I cleared the fridge of her favorite things. The calendar on the wall, once filled with couples' plans, was wiped clean. Now it only had my initials, my events, my movements. I wasn't erasing her. I was erasing us. And she felt it. One night, I came home to find her sitting in the kitchen with a printout of a therapist's number, a list of books about marriage repair, and some half-scripted speech about how people can find their way back. I listened, politely, then walked upstairs. That was the moment the final lock clicked. Because some doors don't slam shut. They seal. And once sealed, they don't open again. The next morning, I contacted my attorney. Had the documents drawn up, clean and final. I wasn't rushing. I was ready. She was in the living room scrolling through photos on her phone when I walked in and placed the envelope on the table. She didn't touch it, didn't speak. I walked away without explanation. Not because I was being cruel. Because explanations are for negotiations. And this wasn't that. She opened it that evening. I could hear the rustle of papers from the next room. Silence. Then a sound I hadn't heard in months. A sharp exhale. Not tears. Not a gasp. Just the air leaving someone who thought she still had time. She didn't. That night, she knocked on my door. I didn't open it. I heard her sit outside, back against the wood. For over an hour. Not saying a word. But words weren't going to change anything anymore. Because she had spent years saying everything without saying anything at all. Through neglect. Through mockery. Through silence. And now? She was finally hearing it back. But this silence wasn't passive. It was permanent. I wasn't punishing her. I was setting myself free. And the most terrifying thing for someone like her, someone who used intimacy as leverage, was discovering that once it's truly gone, there's no way to earn it back. She used to say I was too available, too predictable, too eager to please. She once joked, half laughing, half smirking, that she could disappear for a week and I'd still be there, waiting with takeout and open arms. She was right, back then. But that man doesn't live here anymore. I activated what I now call ghost protocol. Not spiteful, not erratic, just the final layer of silence. The kind that doesn't broadcast its intent, but makes itself known in the void it leaves behind. I stopped leaving anything behind for her. Passwords changed. Accounts split. Utilities rerouted to my name alone. Subscriptions canceled. Her name faded from the logistical skeleton of our life. And slowly she did too. The house was no longer ours. It was a transition zone. A waiting room she didn't know she was sitting in alone. She started pacing. I could hear it. The late-night movements. The drawers opening and closing. The sound of someone searching for a way back without a map. She tried conversation. Asked about my day. Made small talk about headlines she used to ignore. Laughed at shows she never liked, just to fill the room with a version of normal. But I didn't engage. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to protect. She asked me one night if I was seeing someone. I shook my head. She looked relieved. And that told me everything. She didn't want me to be happy without her. She just wanted to be the one who decided when I could move on. That's how control works. It doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears a smile. But mine was gone. And so was her reign. I started spending weekends out of the house. Gym, long drives, solo hikes, dinner with friends she didn't know. I wasn't running toward anyone. I was reintroducing myself to the man I used to be, before love became labor. Her last attempt came on a Sunday morning. She stood in the doorway holding an old photo of us. The one we took on the beach the day I proposed. She said she missed that version of us. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't remember, but because I finally did. And remembering who we were only reminded me why I could never go back. The next day, she started packing. For real this time. No ceremony. No announcements. Just bags, boxes, and the slow realization that she was no longer walking away from something. She was being left behind. The last morning didn't feel dramatic. There was no screaming. No final plea. Just the sound of a suitcase zipper echoing through a house that didn't feel like home anymore. She stood in the entryway, her keys dangling from one finger, like she wasn't sure if she should lock the door behind her or leave it open, just in case. I didn't help her carry anything. Not because I wanted to prove a point. Because I didn't need to. The point had already been made. Weeks of silence had spoken louder than years of trying ever did. She turned once, eyes scanning the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. The couch where she used to scroll through her phone while I tried to make conversation. The dining table she stopped setting. The framed photos still on the shelf. Her smile preserved in a version of the past she thought would never expire. She said it then. I didn't know you were serious. I looked at her. Not with anger. Not even sadness. Just finality. That was the moment her face broke. Not from pain, but from understanding. She had spent so long thinking I'd never leave, that when I finally did, it didn't compute. She took a breath, like she wanted to say something that might rewind time. And then came the line. I need intimacy again. Again. As if it was a faucet she could turn back on. As if I hadn't waited for years to hear those words, when they still meant something. Now, they were just syllables bouncing off concrete. Because by the time she said them, they weren't an offering. They were an echo. And I don't chase echoes anymore. I nodded slowly. Take care of yourself. That was it. No, we'll talk soon. No, maybe one day. Just a clean break. She walked out the door, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't look back. I didn't watch her leave. I just turned, walked into the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, one cup, and sat in silence. But this silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peace. She once said, "Who needs intimacy anyway?" She said it with a smirk, like it was power. But when she needed it back, when she reached for it like a lifeline, it wasn't there. Because intimacy isn't withheld like punishment. It's given freely. Until one day, it isn't. And when that day comes, there's no second chance. Only silence. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.